What's up, guys? So if you watched my first video or the first part of this video, which was the planting of the week last week, which covered Pothos and Scindapsus, this is the second part. So if you watched that, you already know what this is about. I got the same cup of coffee, I got the same outfit on, same plants around me. If you didn't watch it, that's fine. If you want to see different varieties of what actually is a Skindapsis, what actually is a Pothos, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Starting off with arguably the most common of the Pothos family is the golden Pothos. I believe also nicknamed Devil's Ivy, but it's not an ivy, so I'm not gonna call it that. You can see the golden variegation on it. It's kind of like a creamy yellow, white, and it's speckled. It is the fastest growing, hence why you almost always see it in a local Home Depot, Lowe's, any big box store, and a lot of local nurseries will almost always have a few in there, even if it's just a 4-inch pot, because they grow so quickly, and they're also the cheapest out of all of the varieties that I have. Next, we have the Enjoy. The Enjoy isn't too hard to find, honestly. Of course, depends on your area, how much you're willing to spend, but as you can see, the variegation is super cool. It's very separated, like you have the white and the green, and it's clear to see, unlike the Mandula Pothos that's kind of speckled, very mixed in, creamy. I feel like it's an obvious difference, but maybe if you're not really like so much into plants, or you've never really seen these, if they're right next to each other in the same pot, you might not be able to tell the difference. The Mandula leaves are also very fat and like heart-shaped. Well, while the Enjoy is usually known for having smaller leaves like this, but I have been getting pretty decently sized leaves. I'm not complaining. Like that one's pretty big. And then we have a Neon. I find that either these are super common in your area or they're not. In mine, it's kind of in the middle. The Neon has a very elongated leaf, like they're pretty narrow compared to the other ones that I've shown. And of course you have that super cool neon color. My leaves are hella dusty. I haven't showered any of these plants in a long time. But the more sunlight you give this, the more you will be given the very bright neon-y. And mine I have had in kind of a lower light. So as you can see, it's turning kind of a darker green. That was definitely not, which is fine. But I might move it into a brighter location because I want to keep that super bright green. Next, we have the Shangrila, and this is hands down, I won't say my favorite Pothos, but it's definitely top 2. This one and the next one I'm gonna show you are, I just love them so much. Unfortunately, this is a slow grower. I wish it grew as fast as my freaking golden or literally any of the other ones I would take, but it makes sense. It's hard to find. This is the most expensive one I own. I mean, I didn't pay hundreds of dollars for it, but for a freaking pot this size, and it did not have this much growth on it, foliage. I got a good hookup from a friend, but the price I would have paid for this plant in a local nursery that I found in Denver was like $70, which is insane. It was not even this full, and this isn't even that full. And it grows hella slow. So the leaves come in relatively like normal, I guess, like pretty flat, and then they start to crinkle up to the desired look of wilted spinach, which is sometimes what this plant's called, or Godzilla plant. Can be variegated. You can get a variegated type or non. Mine isn't, but honestly, when you look at photos, maybe I'll insert one of the variegated Shangrilas. Oh yeah, if I didn't say the name, Shangrila Pothos. You can't really even like tell that much, because when they're all curled up like this, like the variegation, you don't see much of it. So I don't really care. And if that's the price of the regular Shangrila, anything with variegation, if you know anything about plants, goes up an insane amount for some reason. So I'm not about to pay that price for a variegated version unless I get a really good deal. Also, this distinct shape of this plant, you're not really gonna mix this up with a Skindapsis. Like I believe there's no Skindapsis variety out there that looks anything like the Shangrila Pothos. So I don't think you would ever really see this mislabeled in a nursery unless you just see it either as like a Godzilla or Shangrila or wilted spinach. I see so like a different nickname, but you won't see it mislabeled family wise. My favorite that's tied with that one is the Cebu Blue. This is a sad version. Well, not sad, but like that's looking lanky. I'm probably gonna cut it. Cebu Blue. This is the pride and joy. It grows so fast. I've had it on a moss pole, so the leaves are staying like pretty large, which is crazy. The goal obviously is fenstrations, but I don't know if I'll achieve that. I know a lot of the times Costa Farms drops these at Walmart in pretty full baskets. I got mine in a trade, but the woman I traded with actually got hers at Walmart for like 12 bucks, super cheap. But again, if you look online, you might find small cuttings for like a very overpriced amount for some reason, especially on Etsy. That's besides the point. For how fast these grow, and they're not rare. None of these plants are rare plants. You ideally shouldn't be able to find a decent sized pot for a decent price. But anyway, another reason why I love the soooo is because in the sunlight, this plant looks so beautiful. It has the blue tint, just like a few of the Skindapsis I'm going to show you next, but this blue hue is just so beautiful in the light. Next and last, I believe, for the Pothos, at least that I own, is this giant basket. It's pretty full on top. I just gave it a good trim because it was a little too lengthy for my liking. I believe it is supposed to be a snow queen. It's actually two mixed together, but this half was labeled snow queen when I bought it. It's not very snowy. I'll put in some photos of snow queens. They're supposed to be primarily white with green specks. I don't really have that. I also had it in a lower light condition when I first brought it in my home, so that could also be why. This side, I don't even remember what it was. I think it was, I don't even know. It could have been a golden. I don't even know what this side was. I don't remember. The snow queen, the golden, there's another one that's similar. If I can remember the name, I'll put them right here. They're all very similar. They just differ in color of variegation and the variegation patterns themselves. For the most part, they're not hard to find. All of the pothos that I showed you right now, care is pretty much the same. I talk about that in the first part of the video. And then we're going to move on to Skindapsis. So for the Skindapsis varieties, I have way less than I do of the pothos just because they are harder to find, a little bit more expensive, unfortunately. I'm going to start with the Skindapsis Exotica. Again, leaves are kind of dirty. This one's a little bit thirsty, so it might look droopy, but the Skindapsis Exotica is so beautiful. Has very large leaves for the most part. They do get a little bit smaller as you let them trail. Ideally, these would love to climb. I might get one of them to climb because I have one. I have two. This one has very large leaves, and three, and I have a small, like two smaller pots somewhere, I think. I obviously love this plant, so I might train one of these to climb up. But the Exotica is a perfect example of what the Skindapsis variety is known for having, and that is the large velvety leaves. I know you can't feel on camera, but they are thick, and can you hear that? Some ASMR for you. They are thick and velvety, and they don't have like the pothos, very thin and flimsy leaves. I can't really do as satisfying ASMR on there. And this, like the Cebu Blue, because it has this bluish hue with the silvery variegation in the sunlight, beautiful. God's gift, because it looks so beautiful. So it only makes sense to show you the Skindapsis arguellaris, but it is very similar to the Exotica, as you can see. I mean, not that similar, but they both have that silver variegation. There's also like a, I think it's a silvery Ann or something, or silver splash, I think is what I'm thinking of, where the silver variegation is like splashy, not so concentrated. This one obviously has a pattern of like more speckled variegation, whereas the Exotica is like primarily the whole leaf. Again, this one does give that pretty little shimmer in the sunlight, but not as satisfying as the Exotica or the Cebu. This one also gets very like leggy, and leaves get small. I don't like it. So I usually end up trimming this one a lot. But I do have a smaller one, or a smaller section that I potted up because the variegation was so high, and I wanted to keep the high variegation on this one. So I potted it separately, and anytime I come across a leaf that has very low variegation, I just chop right at that point. I just think it's super cute to have one separately. Again, do I need to have one separately? No. Last is my favorite Skindapsis that I own. I love the Exotica for sure, but it's just so hard to beat the Moonlights, you know? So this is, I have two actually. The Skindapsis trebu Moonlight. There's also another version of this that I want so bad, but I can't find without paying an insane amount of price, or an insane price for it, so I've yet to purchase. But it's the trebu, I can't remember, it's like the darker form. So this has that beautiful hue, like pretty much similar to the soooo. Not really variegated, it's mostly just the whole leaf, and in the sunlight it looks amazing. It has the same velvety thick leaves. I will say these are probably the hardest to find out of the, at least the Skindapsis that I own, and likely the most expensive. I was lucky and Costa Farms carries these and dropped them at my local King Supers, and now I'm seeing them more commonly at like our Home Depot, Lowe's and stuff. At least in my area, I live in Colorado Springs, so again, it depends on your area. One that I bought recently just because I couldn't help it, was at Home Depot, which is crazy. The leaves are clearly a lot smaller. I will say, if you try to buy these online, a lot of the times you will have to pay a crazy price, which is again insane. Shout out Etsy. Definitely not as fast of a grower as my Exotica and the arguellaris. Forgot to mention this one, the Skindapsis arguellaris, and often the Exotica I will see called silver pothos. I'll see this one or this one called a silver pothos, and it's not like, yeah, I get it, like it's silver, and again, it looks similar to a pothos, especially this one looks a little bit more so. This one, I guess maybe if you're not aware. It's not a big deal, but in case you just want to know the difference, now you do, because it's not the same. So now that I feel like I've said Pothos and Scindapsus 1,000 bajillion times, I think that's it. Of course, there's a bajillion more varieties. If you look it up, you can find charts and photos and examples all over the place. Instagram, Pinterest, or just Google. That will show you that there's a bunch of varieties. I'd love to own them all one day, but that's a pretty large feat, and they're coming out with new ones all the time. Costa Farms recently came out with a new variety of the global green a while back, and I do want it, but again, I don't want to pay a lot of money, especially because it's not anything that crazy. It looks similar to a golden, and it has variegation, but it's just green on green variegation, which is pretty cool. So like the leaves are pretty dark, and then it has a lighter green variegation. Maybe I'll put a photo. So new varieties are being created all the time, which is super cool. So the possibilities are kind of endless. Also, this is a great plant. This is the last thing I'll say. Great plant to share cuttings with friends. So like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment and let me know if you want to see a specific plant in next week's Planty of the Week. You can also go to my Instagram, DM me anytime. I always answer DMs and comment on anything. I love to interact with you guys, like, or just the people in the plant community in general. I think it's super fun. And yeah, I think that was all I was gonna say. I feel like I'm rambling. I hope you guys have a good one, and I will see you in my next video.